The crimson glow of dying stars cast an ominous light across the void as the Kytherian war fleet materialized from hyperspace. Hundreds of massive vessels, each the size of a city, arranged themselves in perfect formation above humanity's last bastion. The orbital colony of New Geneva hung helplessly below, its defensive platforms already reduced to twisted metal from the previous assault. Captain Nero Blackwood stood on the bridge of the Silent Predator, watching the alien armada through the viewscreen with cold determination. His weathered face bore the scars of a dozen battles, each line etched by loss and hardship. Behind him, Lieutenant Jade Winters monitored the tactical displays, her fingers dancing across holographic controls with practiced precision. "Captain," she reported, her voice steady despite the overwhelming odds, "Kytherian flagship is hailing us." "Put them through," Nero commanded, straightening his uniform. The viewscreen flickered, revealing the grotesque visage of a Kytherian commander. The alien's elongated skull gleamed with bioluminescent patterns, and its multiple eyes regarded the human crew with obvious contempt. "Humans," the creature spoke in perfect English, its voice dripping with disdain, "I am Warprime Kylex of the Kytherian Empire. Your pathetic species has provided adequate entertainment, but this charade ends now. Surrender your vessel, and we will grant you a swift death." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Nero stepped forward, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "This is Captain Nero Blackwood of the Terran Defense Force. The only thing ending today is your reign of terror." Kylex's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter among his kind. "One ship against my entire fleet. Your species' capacity for delusion never ceases to amaze me. We have reduced 17 of your colonies to ash. What makes you believe this antiquated vessel can succeed where your entire navy failed?" In the depths of the ship, Chief Engineer Marcus Stone worked frantically at his console, monitoring power levels that would have been impossible just months ago. The Silent Predator looked like a standard Terran heavy cruiser from the outside, but beneath its unremarkable hull lay humanity's most advanced technology. Born from desperation and fueled by the blood of billions, this ship represented everything humanity had learned about warfare against impossible odds. The memories still haunted every crew member aboard. The fall of Earth's moon colony, where Jade's family had lived. The destruction of the Titan mining stations, where Marcus had lost his brother. The systematic extermination of the Outer Rim settlements, each one a testament to Kytherian cruelty. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore, they were fighting for revenge. "Your ship appears to be a Wolverine-class cruiser," Kylex continued, accessing tactical data on his end. "We have destroyed dozens of such vessels. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields, your armor cannot withstand our plasma cannons. This is not bravery, human. This is suicide." Nero's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm. "You know what your problem is, Kylex. You talk too much." The alien commander's bioluminescent patterns flared brighter, indicating rising anger. "Very well. If you insist on dying with your ship, I will accommodate you. My fleet will reduce your vessel to its component atoms. Consider this mercy, for it will be quicker than what we have planned for your colony below." The communication cut off, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Around the Silent Predator, the Kytherian fleet began moving into attack formation. Massive dreadnoughts took point positions while sleek destroyers moved to flanking positions. The aliens' confidence was absolute, their movements casual, as if they were preparing for target practice rather than battle. "All stations report ready, Captain," Jade announced, checking her displays. "Stealth systems are online and standing by. Weapons charged and targeting solutions locked. Remember, people," Nero addressed his crew over the ship's communication system, "they think we're just another Wolverine-class cruiser. Let them keep believing that until it's too late. Today, we make them pay for every human life they've taken." Through the corridors of the Silent Predator, the crew moved with grim purpose. These weren't the fresh-faced academy graduates who had started the war 3 years ago. These were survivors, hardened by loss and driven by a hunger for justice that burned brighter than any star. They had watched their worlds burn, their families die, their civilization crumble under the Kytherian onslaught. Marcus checked his engineering boards one final time. The power signatures were holding steady, the experimental systems running within acceptable parameters. Years of research, billions of credits, and the combined genius of humanity's greatest minds had gone into making this moment possible. The Kytherians thought they knew everything about human technology, but they were about to receive a very unpleasant surprise. The alien fleet continued its advance, weapons charging with energy readings that could obliterate a space station. Their formation was perfect, their confidence unshakable. After all, what could one human ship do against such overwhelming force? On the bridge, Nero watched the tactical display with the patience of a predator. The Kytherians were positioning themselves exactly where he wanted them. Their arrogance would be their downfall, just as it had been for every bully humanity had ever faced throughout history. Distance to optimal firing position, he asked quietly. 30 seconds, Captain, Jade reported, her hands steady on the controls despite the magnitude of what they were about to attempt. The silent predator drifted forward, appearing to move reluctantly toward its doom. To the Kytherians, it looked like a desperate last gesture from a dying species. They had no idea they were flying directly into humanity's most carefully laid trap. The moment of reckoning was at hand. The Kytherian flagship sensor arrays hummed with activity as Admiral Vex studied the data streaming across his bioneural interface. Unlike the crude warprime Kylex, Vex had earned his position through cunning rather than brute force. His experience in dozens of planetary conquests had taught him to never underestimate prey, even when it appeared cornered and helpless. Tactical analysis complete, Admiral, reported his aide, a younger Kytherian whose patterns pulsed with nervous energy. The human vessel registers as a standard Wolverine-class heavy cruiser. Approximately 800 meters in length, conventional fusion reactors, standard plasma weaponry. Nothing that should concern the fleet. Vex's elongated fingers traced patterns across his command console, his multiple eyes focused on the readings. Something felt wrong. The human ship's energy signature was odd. Not dramatically different, but subtle variations that his trained senses detected. In his 3 centuries of warfare, he had learned that the most dangerous enemies were those who appeared weakest. Aboard the silent predator, Dr. Helena Cross worked feverishly in the ship's most classified section. Hidden deep within the vessel's hull, behind layers of conventional equipment and false bulkheads, lay humanity's greatest secret. The experimental physics laboratory hummed with energy patterns that defied conventional understanding. Quantum resonance chambers lined the walls, each one containing technology that had cost humanity its brightest minds to develop. Helena, status report, Captain Nero's voice crackled through the secure communication system. All systems nominal, Captain, she replied, her hands dancing across controls that bore no resemblance to standard Terran technology. The quantum displacement field is stable, and the phantom generators are ready for activation. The Kytherians have no idea what they're looking at. Navigator Pike sat at his station, reviewing stellar charts that told the story of humanity's desperate flight across the galaxy. Each red marker represented a colony lost, a world burned, millions of lives extinguished by Kytherian cruelty. His own homeworld of Kepler Prime was among them, reduced to molten slag 3 months ago. The memory of watching his planet die from orbit still haunted his dreams. Captain, Pike called out, I'm detecting unusual scanning patterns from the Kytherian flagship. Their admiral appears to be more thorough than his subordinate. Nero nodded grimly. He had studied every available file on Kytherian command structure during the long journey to this moment. Admiral Vex was no ordinary commander. The alien had orchestrated the fall of the Centauri system and had personally overseen the destruction of Mars' colony. If anyone in the enemy fleet might detect their deception, it would be him. Deep in the engineering section, Marcus Stone monitored power levels that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The silent predator's true power source wasn't the conventional fusion reactors the Kytherians detected. Hidden within the ship's core lay humanity's first successful zero-point energy matrix, a device that drew power from the quantum vacuum itself. The technology was so advanced that even human scientists barely understood how it worked. "Marcus, how long can we maintain the masquerade?" Nero asked over the comm. "As long as we keep power output below threshold levels, we can fool their sensors indefinitely," Marcus replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "But once we activate the primary systems, there'll be no hiding what we really are." Admiral Vex continued his analysis, his unease growing with each passing moment. The human ship's thermal signature was slightly too uniform, its gravitational distortion minimally off-pattern. These were subtleties that most commanders would miss, but Vex had not survived 3 centuries of warfare by ignoring his instincts. "Sub-commander," he called to his tactical officer, "increase scanner resolution. I want a complete molecular analysis of that vessel." Warprime Kylex's sneering voice cut through the flagship's bridge communications. "Admiral, you waste time with excessive caution. It is one pathetic human ship against our entire armada. Even if they possess some minor technological advancement, what difference could it make?" Vex's bioluminescent patterns shifted to display irritation. Kylex was typical of the younger generation of Kytherian commanders, all aggression and no subtlety. "Warprime, in my experience, the most dangerous enemies are those who appear least threatening. That vessel troubles me." Back aboard the Silent Predator, Dr. Cross monitored her instruments with growing concern. The enhanced Kytherian scans were beginning to penetrate their outer deception layers. "Captain, they're pushing their sensors harder. I'm having to reroute more power to the masking systems. How much longer before they see through our disguise?" Nero asked. "At current scanning intensity, maybe 10 minutes. After that, they'll detect the quantum signatures." Lieutenant Jade Winters looked up from her tactical console, her expression tense. "Captain, if they discover what we really are before we're in optimal position, we lose the element of surprise." Nero weighed his options carefully. The Silent Predator's greatest advantage was that the Kytherians expected to face a conventional human warship. Once they realized the truth, their entire tactical approach would change. But rushing into battle prematurely could be equally disastrous. Navigator Pike studied the enemy formation with professional interest. "Sir, they're maintaining standard fleet attack posture." If Admiral Vex suspected anything significant, he would have ordered a more cautious approach. The truth was that the Silent Predator represented 5 years of humanity's most desperate research and development. While colonies burned and fleets died, the remnants of Terran science worked in hidden facilities, pushing the boundaries of known physics. They had reverse-engineered captured Kytherian technology, combined it with theoretical breakthroughs, and created something entirely new. The ship's hull contained self-repairing metamaterials that could adapt to incoming weapons fire. Its engines could manipulate space-time itself, allowing for maneuvers that violated classical physics. Most importantly, its weapons systems drew on principles that the Kytherians had never encountered, technologies that could penetrate their supposedly impervious defenses. Dr. Cross called up a holographic display showing the ship's true specifications. To any observer familiar with human technology, the readings would seem impossible. Power output levels that dwarfed anything in the Terran fleet, energy signatures that suggested technologies decades ahead of known science, weapon systems that existed only in theoretical papers just months ago. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she whispered to herself, watching the quantum fields fluctuate in perfect harmony. This ship wasn't just humanity's weapon of revenge, it was proof that even in their darkest hour, humans could transcend their limitations. Admiral Vex suddenly stiffened, his biopatterns flashing alarm colors. The enhanced scans had revealed something that chilled him to his core. The human vessel's power signature had momentarily spiked beyond anything their database contained. For just an instant, he had seen readings that suggested technology far beyond what humans should possess. "All ships, immediate tactical alert," he commanded, his voice cutting through the fleet communications. "The human vessel may not be what it appears." Warprime Kylex's mocking laughter filled the channel. "Admiral, your paranoia grows tiresome. It is time to end this charade." But Vex's instincts screamed danger. Something was very, very wrong with this entire situation. The humans were too calm, too confident. No species faced extinction with such composure unless they held cards that their enemies couldn't see. The moment of truth was approaching, and both sides knew it. The moment arrived with the silence of death itself. Gunner Sergeant Roth's fingers hovered over his weapons console as targeting solutions locked onto the massive Kytherian dreadnoughts. Years of watching human colonies burn had forged him into something harder than steel, and today would be his vindication. His eyes never left the tactical display as enemy ships moved into perfect formation, their overconfidence about to become their doom. "All weapons hot," he reported, his voice carrying the weight of every fallen comrade. "Primary targets acquired and locked." Communications Officer Luna monitored the Kytherian fleet channels, listening to their casual chatter about dividing up salvage rights from the human ship. Their arrogance was absolute, their victory assured, at least in their own minds. She adjusted her headset, preparing to witness the moment when that certainty would shatter like glass. Warprime Kylex's voice boomed across the fleet frequency. "Attack Formation Delta 7. All ships, prepare to obliterate the human vessel on my command. Let us end this tedious display of defiance." Admiral Vex remained troubled on his flagship bridge, studying the anomalous readings that continued to plague his sensors. The human ship's energy patterns were becoming increasingly difficult to mask, and what he was seeing defied everything he knew about Terran technology. His aide, Subcommander Zorik, noticed his superior's agitation with growing concern. "Admiral, your biopatterns suggest extreme stress. Perhaps Warprime Kylex is correct. One human vessel, however unusual, cannot threaten our entire armada." Vex's multiple eyes focused on Zorik with sharp intensity. "Subcommander, I have witnessed the extinction of 47 species across this galaxy. Each one fell because they underestimated their final adversary. The humans have surprised us before." Aboard the Silent Predator, Captain Nero watched the enemy formation with the patience of a master tactician. The Kytherians had positioned themselves exactly where humanity's greatest scientists had predicted they would. Arrogance was a universal constant, and today it would be their enemy's undoing. "Dr. Cross, initiate quantum displacement," he commanded quietly. In the hidden laboratory, Helena's hands moved across controls that channeled forces beyond conventional physics. Quantum field generators activating. Phantom protocols engaged. "Captain, we are about to become something they've never seen before." The transformation began subtly, reality itself bending around the Silent Predator's hull. To external observers, the ship began to flicker, its outline becoming uncertain as quantum uncertainty principles were weaponized on a macro scale. The vessel existed in multiple probability states simultaneously, making it nearly impossible to target with conventional weapons. Gunner Sergeant Roth felt the ship's systems surge with power levels that exceeded anything in human history. "Captain, all weapon systems are showing green across the board. The quantum torpedoes are armed and ready." "Fire," Nero commanded with cold precision. The first quantum torpedo streaked through space, its warhead containing compressed spacetime that would unfold upon impact. To the Kytherians, it appeared as nothing more than an unusual energy signature until it struck their lead dreadnought's shields. Instead of dissipating harmlessly, the torpedo phased directly through the barrier as if it didn't exist, detonating against the hull with devastating effect. The massive Kytherian vessel, pride of their fleet, simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed in the conventional sense, but erased from local spacetime as the quantum warhead unfolded reality itself. Where a kilometer-long dreadnought had been, only empty void remained. Silence fell across the Kytherian fleet channels. Warprime Kylex's triumphant laughter died in his throat as his sensors struggled to comprehend what had just occurred. The readings made no sense. The human weapon had completely bypassed their shields, something that should have been physically impossible. What in the void was that? Zorik whispered, his biopatterns flashing confusion and terror. Admiral Vex's worst fears were being realized. "All ships, evasive maneuvers immediately." That vessel is not what it appears to be. But the silent predator was just beginning its deadly dance. The ship's quantum displacement systems allowed it to exist in multiple positions simultaneously, confusing targeting computers and making return fire nearly impossible. It flickered in and out of conventional spacetime, striking like a phantom and vanishing before retaliation could arrive. Communications Officer Luna monitored the growing panic in Kytherian transmissions. Orders contradicted other orders, fleet coordination broke down as commanders struggled to engage an enemy that defied their understanding of physics. She allowed herself a grim smile as she listened to their confusion. Roth fired again, and another impossible weapon carved through the alien formation. This time, a gravitational implosion torpedo created a miniature black hole that lasted just long enough to consume a Kytherian cruiser before evaporating in a burst of Hawking radiation. The enemy vessel was compressed to a point and then annihilated, leaving only a brief flash of exotic particles. How are they doing this? Warprime Kylex demanded, his voice shrill with panic. Our intelligence indicated they possessed only conventional weaponry. Admiral Vex was already issuing new orders, his centuries of experience finally overcoming his shock. Fleet Dispersal Pattern Omega. Do not attempt to engage directly. Maintain maximum distance and prepare long-range bombardment. But it was too late for measured responses. The silent predator had closed to optimal firing range, and humanity's vengeance would not be denied. The ship's metamaterial hull began to shift and adapt, reconfiguring itself for maximum combat efficiency. Weapon ports opened in impossible geometries as the vessel prepared to unleash technologies that existed beyond Kytherian comprehension. Dr. Cross monitored the quantum cascade reactions building within the ship's core. Captain, we're approaching critical mass for the primary weapon systems. The zero-point matrix is stable, but we're drawing power at rates that will be visible across 3-star systems. Let them see, Nero replied grimly. It's time they understood what humanity can accomplish when pushed to extinction. The next volley from the silent predator consisted of weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe. Temporal distortion missiles created localized time dilation fields that aged Kytherian ships to dust in seconds. Dark matter projectiles passed through conventional defenses to strike targets from dimensions that existed perpendicular to normal space. Quantum entanglement beams linked enemy vessels together, ensuring that damage to one was instantly transferred to others. The proud Kytherian formation, which had destroyed dozens of human fleets, was being systematically dismantled by technologies they couldn't understand, couldn't predict, and couldn't counter. Their weapons' fire passed harmlessly through empty space where the human ship had been moments before, while return strikes found their targets with impossible precision. Subcommander Zorik watched his tactical displays in growing horror. Admiral, we've lost 7 ships in the last 90 seconds. Their weapons appear to violate multiple laws of physics. How do we fight something like this? Admiral Vex's biopatterns had shifted to colors that indicated deep tactical concern. In 3 centuries of warfare, he had never encountered an enemy that operated beyond his understanding of the possible. The humans had somehow transcended their technological limitations and created something that challenged the natural order itself. Warprime Kylex's voice cracked with disbelief as another of his dreadnoughts vanished into quantum foam. This is impossible. Humans are a primitive species. They cannot possess such weapons. But the evidence continued to accumulate as the silent predator carved through their ranks like a scythe through grain. Each attack demonstrated capabilities that suggested humanity had somehow leaped centuries ahead in technological development, creating weapons that existed at the intersection of science and impossibility. The trap had been sprung, and the Kytherian Empire was learning that their supposedly inferior prey had evolved into something far more dangerous than they could have imagined. Tactical Officer Finn's hands moved with deadly precision across his console, orchestrating a symphony of destruction that would have been impossible just hours ago. Each strike was calculated, each target chosen not just for maximum damage but for psychological impact. The Kytherians needed to understand that their reign of terror was ending, one impossible weapon at a time. Targeting their command vessel clusters, Finn reported, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were accomplishing. If we can fragment their leadership structure, the remaining ships will lose cohesion entirely. Medical Officer Grace monitored the crew's vital signs from her station, watching for the telltale signs of quantum radiation exposure that came with operating such advanced systems. The technology that made their victory possible was not without its costs, and she would ensure that humanity's heroes survived to see the dawn they were fighting to create. Across the void, Kytherian Fleet Admiral Nexus struggled to maintain control of his disintegrating formation. Unlike the arrogant Warprime Kylex, Nexus had earned his position through strategic brilliance and tactical flexibility. But nothing in his extensive training had prepared him for an enemy that operated outside the known laws of physics. Fleet status report, he demanded, his bioluminescent patterns flashing urgent command colors. 17 vessels destroyed or missing, Admiral, his tactical officer responded with visible terror. The human ship appears to be employing some form of dimensional warfare. Our targeting systems cannot maintain locks on a vessel that exists in multiple probability states simultaneously. The silent predator continued its ghostly dance through the Kytherian formation, striking from impossible angles and vanishing before return fire could reach its position. Each attack demonstrated new capabilities that pushed the boundaries of what the aliens believed possible. The ship's quantum displacement field allowed it to phase partially out of normal spacetime, making it effectively invulnerable to conventional weapons while maintaining its ability to strike back. Captain Nero stood on his bridge like an avenging angel, watching years of careful planning come to fruition. But this wasn't just about military victory. This was personal. His mind drifted to the evacuation of New Tokyo, where he had watched helplessly as Kytherian plasma bombardment reduced 2 million civilians to ash. His wife and daughter had been among them, vaporized in the first wave of attacks. Finn, target their troop transports next, he ordered quietly. Those ships carry the ground forces they used to massacre our colonies. Tactical Officer Finn's jaw tightened with understanding. Every member of the crew had lost someone to Kytherian brutality. The troop transports represented more than just military assets, they were symbols of the systematic genocide that had driven humanity to the brink of extinction. The next volley from the silent predator consisted of exotic matter warheads that created cascade reactions in the target vessel's atomic structure. The Kytherian troop ships didn't simply explode, they underwent spontaneous nuclear conversion, their mass transformed into pure energy in brilliant flashes that illuminated the battlefield like newborn stars. Warprime Kylex's panicked voice crackled across the fleet channels. How are they targeting us through our jamming fields? Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate our electronic countermeasures. Admiral Vex, monitoring the battle from his flagship, finally understood the true scope of what they faced. The humans aren't using conventional targeting systems, he realized aloud. They're employing quantum entanglement to lock onto our vessels. Every ship in this fleet was quantum tagged the moment we entered this system. The revelation sent chills through the Kytherian command structure. If the humans could target them through quantum mechanics, no amount of conventional defense would matter. They were fighting an enemy that had somehow transcended the limitations of three-dimensional warfare. Dr. Cross worked feverishly in her laboratory, monitoring the exotic reactions taking place throughout the ship's systems. The zero-point energy matrix was performing beyond all projections, but the power demands were enormous. Captain, we're maintaining peak efficiency, but these weapon systems are consuming energy at unprecedented rates. The quantum cascade reactions are stable, but we're operating at the very edge of theoretical limits. Medical Officer Grace noted concerning readings from several crew members. The quantum fields permeating the ship were having subtle effects on human physiology. Nothing immediately dangerous, but prolonged exposure might cause cellular mutations. She made a mental note to recommend genetic screening for all personnel after the battle, assuming any of them survived to see tomorrow. The silent predator's next attack revealed yet another impossible capability. The ship's weapons began firing through dimensional rifts, striking Kytherian vessels from angles that didn't exist in normal space. Energy beams emerged from points of empty vacuum, seemingly appearing from nowhere to devastate targets that believed themselves safely positioned. Fleet Admiral Nexus watched his carefully coordinated battle plan crumble into chaos. All ships, implement emergency scatter protocol. Break formation and engage evasive patterns. Do not attempt coordinated attacks against the human vessel. But even as individual ships attempted to flee, the silent predator's advanced targeting systems tracked each one with relentless precision. The ship's artificial intelligence, enhanced with quantum processing cores, could calculate probability matrices for thousands of targets simultaneously. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide from humanity's mechanical angel of vengeance. Tactical Officer Finn smiled grimly as his displays showed the enemy formation completely fragmented. Captain, their fleet cohesion has collapsed. They're operating as individual units now, which makes them vulnerable to our area effect weapons. The next phase of the attack demonstrated the true horror of humanity's new capabilities. Quantum foam generators created expanding spheres of unstable spacetime that consumed everything in their path. Reality itself became a weapon as localized regions of the universe reverted to the chaos that existed before the laws of physics took hold. Kytherian ships caught in these zones simply ceased to exist, not destroyed but rather edited out of reality as if they had never been built. The psychological impact on the surviving crews was devastating. How do you fight an enemy that can unmake existence itself? Warprime Kylex's voice had lost all of its earlier arrogance, replaced by something approaching hysteria. This is not warfare. This is cosmic blasphemy. No species should possess such power. But Medical Officer Grace, monitoring the communications channels, felt no sympathy for their tormentors. She remembered the hospital ship where she had served during the fall of Kepler Prime, watching Kytherian fighters strafe the medical facilities with deliberate precision. They had shown no mercy to the wounded and dying then, they would receive none now. The battle had transformed from a military engagement into something approaching divine judgment. The silent predator continued its methodical destruction of the Kytherian fleet, each strike a testament to human ingenuity and determination. The species that had been written off as primitive had somehow transcended their limitations to become something their enemies could neither understand nor defeat. Admiral Vex, watching his fleet disintegrate around him, made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours earlier. All ships, prepare for emergency hyperspace jump. We must withdraw and warn the Empire about what we've discovered here. But even retreat might not be possible. The silent predator's weapons had begun targeting the Kytherian ship's hyperspace drives, trapping them in normal space where humanity's vengeance could find them. The trap was not just tactical, it was existential, cutting off all avenues of escape. The tide had turned completely, and the Kytherian Empire was learning that their victims had evolved into something far more dangerous than they could have imagined.